The observation deck hummed with the nervous energy of 200 species, all pretending they weren't watching her. Commander Vexter of the Galactic Defense Academy pressed his primary manipulator against the transparasteel viewport, his three eyes narrowing as he studied the transport shuttle descending through Cadros Prime's violet atmosphere. "That's her," his aide, a young Thraxian named Pick, whispered. The kid's voice, modulated, crackled with barely contained excitement, or maybe fear. Hard to tell with Thraxians. "That's her," Vexter confirmed, though confirmation seemed unnecessary. The entire upper echelon of the Academy had received the classified briefing. The hushed conversations in the council chambers, the warnings transmitted through encrypted channels that took 17 security clearances just to access human, female, 23 solar cycles old according to their primitive measurement system, named Kira Monroe, and apparently the single most dangerous thing to enter Academy grounds in 300 years. Vexter would have laughed if he wasn't so damn nervous. The shuttle touched down with practiced precision, its landing struts hissing as they made contact with the arrival platform. Around him, the observation deck had gone silent. Even the Corthian delegates, who never shut their vocal apertures for anything, had stopped their incessant chattering. "She looks small," Pick observed. "The deadliest toxins come in the smallest packages," Vexter muttered, immediately regretting how dramatic that sounded. But it was true, wasn't it? The files, the reports, the incident logs that had somehow made their way into council hands despite humanity's best efforts to suppress them. Kira Monroe, dishonorably discharged from Earth's military after, quote, catastrophic insubordination resulting in the unauthorized termination of a hostile engagement. Translation: she'd ignored direct orders, gone rogue, and somehow won a battle that 3 tactical AIs had calculated as absolutely unwinnable. The shuttle door opened. Vexter leaned forward, and he wasn't alone. Every being in that observation deck pressed closer to the viewport, watching as the human emerged into Cadros Prime's amber sunlight. She was underwhelming. No, that wasn't fair. She was exactly what she appeared to be. A young human female of average height and build, carrying a single duffel bag over her shoulder. Dark hair pulled back in something humans called a ponytail. Standard cadet jumpsuit in Academy gray. No weapons visible, which meant nothing, because humans were weapons. "This is the one they're afraid of." Pick sounded disappointed. "Look at her eyes," Vexter said softly. Even from this distance, even through the viewport's slight distortion, those eyes were visible. Not their color, which was some shade of brown according to the file, but the way they moved, constantly scanning, cataloging, calculating. She walked across that landing platform like someone expecting an ambush at any moment and somehow making it look casual. "She moves like a hunter," someone behind Vexter whispered. That was it exactly. She moved like a predator in a room full of prey, even though she was supposed to be the rookie, the newcomer, the lowest-ranking cadet in the entire Academy. Vexter's comm unit buzzed. "Commander, Director Salvex wants you in the main briefing room now." Of course he did. The director always wanted updates on things that made him nervous, and Kira Monroe definitely made him nervous. Kira stepped off the transport and immediately wanted to go back to Earth. Not because Cadros Prime wasn't beautiful, it was stunning actually. All purple skies and crystalline no. Wait, not that word, all purple skies. And gleaming architecture that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built on it, but because she could feel the eyes, hundreds of them, thousands, maybe all watching her like she was some kind of exotic animal that might explode at any moment. Welcome to Galactic Defense Academy. Cadet Monroe, a mechanical voice announced from the greeting terminal. The holographic interface shimmered into existence, displaying what she assumed was a welcoming smile, though on Kixian face it looked more like someone was trying to digest something unpleasant. Please proceed to Registration Hall 7 for orientation and assignment. Thanks, Kira muttered, adjusting her duffel bag. The weight was familiar, comforting. Everything she owned in one bag, just like always. Light and mobile, that was the key. Never get attached to anything you couldn't carry. The walk to Registration Hall 7 took 20 minutes through corridors that seemed designed to intimidate, massive vaulted ceilings covered in bioluminescent patterns, statues of famous military leaders from a dozen different species, all of them looking stern and accomplished and very much not human. Display cases showing weapons and technology that made Earth's best equipment look like stone tools. Yeah, she got the message. Humans were the new kids, the babies of the galactic community. Should be grateful just to be here. Except Kira wasn't big on gratitude, especially the forced kind. Registration Hall 7 was chaos in the most organized way possible. Lines of cadets from probably 50 different species all filling out. Holographic forms getting retinal scans, having their biological signatures recorded for the Academy database. The noise was overwhelming, hundreds of conversations in languages that her translator implant struggled to keep up with. Next, a bored voice called out. Kira approached the registration desk, where a Valorian clerk looked up from his datapad with the kind of expression that suggested he'd rather be literally anywhere else. Name: Kira Monroe, Human Earth Sector. The clerk's antenna twitched just once, but Kira caught it. Recognition, fear, annoyance. Ah yes, you're expected. He tapped something on his datapad and his demeanor shifted slightly, more professional now, less bored. Biometric scan, please. Place your hand on the panel. Kira did. The panel glowed blue, then green, then settled on a pulsing amber color. Interesting, the clerk muttered. Your adrenaline response is elevated. Are you nervous, Cadet Monroe? Are you always this nosy? Kira shot back before she could stop herself. The clerk's antenna twitched again, but this time something that might have been amusement flickered across his features. Fair enough, you're cleared for standard cadet housing, Block 17, Room 426. Your course schedule has been transmitted to your personal device. Orientation begins at 6th bell tomorrow morning. Do not be late. The Academy takes punctuality very seriously. Got it? Anything else? Yes, actually. The clerk leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. A word of advice, human to well human. Keep your head down, don't make waves. The Academy isn't Earth. The rules here actually mean something. Kira studied him for a moment. There was genuine concern in his eyes, which was surprising. Thanks for the tip. You're welcome. Next. The housing block was a 10-minute walk, through more impressive corridors and past more intimidating statuary. Kira found room 426 without much trouble, pressed her palm to the lock panel and watched the door slide open to reveal a closet. Okay, not technically a closet, but damn close. A sleeping platform that folded out from the wall, a desk surface that probably did the same, and a hygiene station behind a privacy screen that looked like it had been designed for someone significantly smaller than her. Home sweet home, she said to the empty room. Her comm device chimed. New message from someone called Commander Vexther. Report to Training Complex Alpha at 8th Bell. Mandatory evaluation for all new cadets. Wear standard physical training attire. Do not be late. Kira tossed her duffel on the sleeping platform and sat down next to it. Through the narrow window she could see the academy grounds spreading out below. Training facilities, classroom, buildings, recreation areas. Cadets everywhere moving in groups. Laughing, talking. Looking like they belonged. She didn't belong here. Everyone knew it. She knew it. The question was whether they'd figure out why before she did what she came here to do. Her hand moved unconsciously to the small data chip hidden in the lining of her jacket. Still there. Still safe. Still containing information that would probably get her killed if anyone found it. What the hell did I get myself into? She whispered. Vexther stood at the front of Training Complex Alpha, watching the new cadets file in. 237 of them this cycle, representing 42 different species. All of them eager, nervous, trying to look confident and mostly failing. And then there was Kira Monroe. She entered last, moving with that same predatory grace he'd noticed on the landing platform, while the other cadets clustered together in their species groups. Seeking comfort and familiarity, she stood alone near the back of the formation, not hiding exactly, just separate attention. Vexther's voice boomed across the training complex, amplified by the acoustic design of the space. 237 cadets snapped to something resembling attention. Welcome to Galactic Defense Academy. For the next 4 solar cycles, this facility will be your home, your school, and your crucible. You came here from across the galaxy, from worlds and cultures so different that some of you cannot even breathe the same atmosphere. He paused, letting that sink in. Several cadets in environmental suits shifted uncomfortably. But you all share one thing: you want to serve, you want to protect. You want to prove that you have what it takes to stand alongside the finest warriors in galactic history. Well, guess what? Wanting doesn't mean a damn thing. In this academy, you will be tested in ways you cannot imagine. You will be pushed to your limits and then beyond. Some of you will quit. Some of you will fail. And a very, very few of you might actually graduate. His 3 eyes swept across the formation, deliberately skipping over Kira. He'd look at her later when it wouldn't be so obvious. Your first evaluation begins now. You will complete the standard cadet obstacle course. This is not a race. This is not a competition. This is an assessment of your basic physical capabilities and Problem-solving skills. The course adapts to each species. Biological parameters, so don't bother looking for shortcuts. Begin when ready. Dismissed. The cadets scattered toward the course. Entrance. Vexter watched them go, making mental notes. The Corthians moved in their typical pack formation, already coordinating. Strategy. The Valyrians relied on their superior speed. The Thraxians used their multiple limbs to tackle obstacles in ways other species couldn't match. And Kira Monroe. She walked toward the course like she was going to the cafeteria. No urgency. No visible concern. Just a casual stroll toward something that had made full-grown Corthian warriors weep. This should be interesting, Pix said. From beside him. You have no idea, Vexter replied. Kira sized up the obstacle course with a professional eye. Standard military. Set up more or less. Walls to climb, trenches to cross. Balance beams, rope swings, the whole predictable package. Except this version was about 3 times larger than anything on Earth. Built to accommodate species ranging from the tiny Pixari to the massive Corthians. Adapts to biological parameters, the commander had said. Kira wondered what that meant exactly. Would it get easier for her human physiology? Or harder? Only one way to find out. She started running. The first obstacle was a simple wall. Maybe 12 ft high with handholds. Kira hit it at full speed, found her grip points and scaled it in seconds. On the other side, a cargo net stretched across a muddy pit. Easy. She crossed it hand over hand, dropped to the ground, kept moving. Behind her, she could hear the other cadets shouting encouragement to each other. Species-specific strategies being deployed. Everyone working together in their little tribal groups. Kira worked alone, always had. The course got harder. A series of platforms that rotated when you stepped on them, requiring perfect balance and timing. Kira made it across in 4 jumps. Nearly slipped on the last one. Recovered with a reflexive twist that would have made her old drill instructor proud or furious, probably both. Then came the fun part. A vertical climb up what looked like the side of a small mountain. And GT clears throat. And GT, except the handholds kept retracting into the wall at random intervals. Kira grabbed the first hold, pulled herself up, and immediately had to lunge for another one as the first disappeared. Her shoulders screamed in protest, but she kept climbing, kept moving, kept finding the next handhold just before the previous one vanished. At the top, breathing hard, she looked back down. Maybe half the cadets were still struggling with the cargo net. Another quarter had made it to the rotating platforms. Only a handful had reached the climbing wall, and none of them were human. Kira grinned despite herself. Then she turned and faced the final section of the course. Oh, that was nasty. A series of narrow beams suspended over water, except the water was glowing in unpleasant green color and bubbling ominously. Signs in multiple languages warned of its caustic properties. The beams were moving, swinging back and forth on cables, never in the same pattern. Adapts to biological parameters, Kira muttered. Right. So what fresh hell did it adapt this into for me? She stepped onto the first beam. It immediately dropped 6 in and started swinging faster. The second beam was even worse, tilting. At a 45 degrees angle the moment her weight hit. It. Kira stumbled, windmilled her arms. Barely kept her balance. This wasn't just testing physical ability. This was testing whether she could handle completely unpredictable variables while under pressure. Kira loved it. She stopped trying to predict the beams and just moved, trusting her reflexes, letting her body react faster than her brain could process. Jump, balance, adjust, jump again. The caustic water bubbled 6 ft below. Sorry. One slip and she'd be taking a very unpleasant bath. Come on, Monroe, she growled at herself. You've done worse, you've done so much worse. The final beam led to a platform. Kira launched herself at it, felt her foot slip at the last second, found herself falling, reached out desperately and caught the platform's edge with one hand. Her body slammed into the supporting pillar hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. For a moment she just hung there, gasping, fingers screaming. Below her the caustic water bubbled and hissed. Then she pulled herself up. One hand, then the other. Legs swinging, finding purchase. Dragging herself onto the platform. She lay on her back for maybe 5 seconds, staring up at Cadros Prime's purple sky. Then she stood up, walked to the course exit and found Commander Vexler waiting for her. All 3 of his eyes were wide with something that looked suspiciously like shock. Cadet Monroe, he said slowly. That was impressive. Was it? Kira shrugged, trying to ignore the way her entire body was shaking. Seemed pretty straightforward to me. Straightforward. Vexler made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. You just completed a course that has a 60% failure rate for first-time attempts. In 14 minutes, the Academy record is 11 minutes, set by Accordion with 4 arms and reflexes 3 times faster than yours. Cool. Do I get a medal or something? Behind Vexler, his aide, that young Threxian, was staring at her with unconcealed awe. Several other instructors had gathered to watch, all of them looking at her like she just sprouted wings. Kira hated being stared at. You should go clean up, Vexler said. Finally, orientation continues tomorrow at 6. Bell. And Cadet Monroe. Yeah. That chip in your jacket lining. You should probably find a better hiding place. The Academy scanners are quite sophisticated. Kira's blood went cold. She kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. I don't know what you're talking about, Commander. Of course you don't. Vexler turned away, then paused. Welcome to the Academy, Cadet. Try not to burn it down. Kira watched him walk away, her mind racing. He knew. He actually knew about the chip, which meant either the scanners really were that good or someone had tipped him off, or worst case scenario, she'd been compromised before she even got here. Around her, the other cadets were finishing the course, celebrating their completions, commiserating over them failures. Normal Academy stuff. Normal cadet experiences. Nothing about this was normal. Kira headed back toward the housing blocks, trying to look casual, trying not to run. In her head, she was already recalculating new variables, new risks. The mission hadn't changed, but the difficulty level just went from hard to nearly impossible. She's the one they warned us about, someone whispered as she passed, Not to her, but about her. The words carried in the alien atmosphere probably farther than the speaker intended. Kira kept walking. Didn't react, didn't acknowledge. But inside, a cold certainty settled into her bones. Whatever game she'd walked into, the other players already knew her cards. They were watching, waiting, probably hoping she'd slip up and give them a reason to kick her out or worse. Well, too bad for them. Kira Monroe didn't slip up. She'd been trained by the best and betrayed by the worst, and if the Galactic Defense Academy thought they could intimidate her into compliance, they were about to learn a very painful lesson about human stubbornness. She reached her room, locked the door, and pulled the data chip from its hiding place. In the amber light from Cadro's prime's setting sun, the tiny device gleamed with all the secrets it contained. Secrets about the Council, about the Academy, about things that happened in dark corners of the galaxy where nobody was supposed to look. Secrets that people would kill to protect. Tomorrow, Kira whispered to the chip. Tomorrow we start making some noise. She tucked the chip into a new hiding spot, one the scanners wouldn't find so easily, and allowed herself a small smile. They wanted to watch her. Fine. She'd give them a show they'd never forget. The observation deck's lights winked out, one by one as night fell across Cadro's prime. In the darkness, 200 species slept or meditated or did whatever their biology required. Only Kira Monroe lay awake, staring at the ceiling, planning her next move in a game where the rules kept changing and the stakes were higher than anyone realized. Morning on Cadro's prime arrived with 3 suns breaching the horizon in sequence, each casting a different shade of light across the Academy grounds. Kira stood at her window, watching the spectacle while running through combat sequences in her mind. Old habits from Earth that apparently worked just as well 30 light years away. Her comm device chirped exactly at 6th bell. Orientation. Time to meet the people who would either become allies or obstacles, and knowing her luck, probably both. The orientation hall was massive, designed to accommodate species that ranged from knee-high to ceiling scraping. Kira found a seat in the middle section, deliberately choosing a spot surrounded by other cadets, hiding in plain sight. Her old instructor used to call it be visible enough that absence gets noticed, invisible enough that presence gets forgotten. Is this seat taken? A voice asked. Kira looked up to find a Quellan female, all blue-gray skin and curious amber eyes, gesturing at the empty chair beside her. It's yours if you want it, Kira replied. The Quellan sat down with a fluid grace that suggested either dance training or military discipline, possibly both. I'm Zara. I saw you run yesterday. That final beam sequence, I've never seen anyone move like that. Just got lucky, Kira said, keeping her tone neutral. Luck? Zara laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a storm. Humans have interesting definitions for skill. I'm from the Quellan Defense Corps, 6 years combat experience before they sent me here for advanced tactical training. That wasn't luck. That was training I can't even identify. Before Kira could respond, the lights dimmed. A holographic projection materialized at the front of the hall, displaying the Academy crest, all elegant geometric patterns and symbols representing the founding species. Director Salvex appeared on stage, towering Morphaxian whose chitinous exterior gleamed under the spotlight. When he spoke, his voice resonated through translation implants in a dozen languages simultaneously. Cadets, you have survived your first evaluation. Congratulations. Some of you excelled, some of you merely survived. Both outcomes are acceptable for day 1. What matters now is growth, adaptation, and understanding your place in the larger galactic defense structure. Kira listened with half her attention, while the other half cataloged escape routes, security camera positions, and potential allies among the gathered cadets. Old paranoia, except it wasn't paranoia when people actually were watching you. The Academy operates on a merit-based advancement system, Salvex continued. Your species, your home world, your political connections, none of that matters here. Only performance, only results. You will be evaluated constantly, often, without your knowledge. Excellence is expected, mediocrity is tolerated briefly. Failure is not an option for those who wish to remain. Beside her, Zara leaned closer and whispered, "He's looking at you." Kira glanced up. Sure enough, Salvex's primary eyes were fixed in her direction, though whether specifically on her or the general area was hard to determine. Our newest cadets include, Salvex announced, among them we have our first human cadet. Kira Monroe, please stand. Every instinct screamed at Kira to refuse to stay seated, to not draw attention. But that would only make things worse. She stood slowly, keeping her expression neutral while hundreds of eyes turned toward her. Humanity is a recent addition to the galactic community, Salvex said, his tone impossible to read. Their military history is brief, but remarkably violent for such a young species. We are curious to see how human training translates to Academy standards. Cadet Monroe, do you have anything to say to your fellow cadets? It was a trap. Had to be. Say the wrong thing and confirm whatever suspicions they already had. Say nothing and look weak, unprepared. Kira chose option 3. I'm here to learn, same as everyone else, she said clearly, and maybe teach a few things along the way. Humans are pretty good at adapting to hostile environments. We've had a lot of practice. A ripple of something moved through the crowd. Laughter, appreciation, threat. Assessment, hard to tell. Indeed, Salvex said. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been amusement. We shall see. You may sit. Kira dropped back into her seat, hyper-aware of the attention still focused on her. Zara gave her a subtle nod of approval. The orientation continued for another hour, covering Academy regulations, training schedules, evaluation criteria, and about 15 different ways cadets could get themselves expelled or worse. Kira memorized everything, particularly the parts about unauthorized access to classified information and penalties for espionage. Funny how they emphasized those sections, while half the room was still looking at her. When the assembly finally ended, cadets began filing out in their species clusters. Kira hung back, waiting for the crowd to thin. She'd learned that exits were dangerous, choke points where ambushes happened or conversations got forced. Cadet Monroe, Commander Vexler, materialized from a Side entrance like he'd been waiting. Specifically for her. Probably had been. A moment of your time. Not a request. Kira followed him through a side corridor that led away from the main halls. The walls here were bare metal instead of decorative, functional instead of impressive. Service passages that staff used but cadets weren't supposed to know about. Where are we going? Kira asked, keeping her voice steady. Somewhere we can speak privately. Vexter replied. He stopped at an unmarked door, pressed his hand to the access panel, and gestured for her to enter first. The room beyond was small, sparse. Table, 2 chairs, walls that probably had enough sound dampening to muffle a small explosion. An interrogation room pretending to be a conference space. Kira sat without being asked, a small act of defiance that Vexter acknowledged with something that might have been approval in one of his eyes. You're wondering why I brought you here, he said, taking the opposite chair. I'm wondering when you'll get to the point. Kira corrected, sir. The data chip, what's on it? Direct, unexpected. Kira had prepared 17 different cover stories, but Vexter's bluntness threw her off balance, which was probably the intent. Personal files, she said, pictures from home, letters from family. Standard sentimental stuff. Interesting considering Earth's preliminary security scan showed the chip contains encrypted military-grade data requiring authorization codes you shouldn't possess. Vexter leaned forward. So let's try again. What's on it? Kira met his three-eyed gaze without flinching. Even if I knew, which I don't, why would I tell you? Because I'm trying to help you, you stubborn human. Because there are members of the council who want you expelled before you finish your first week. Because whatever game you're playing could get you killed, and despite what you might think, I'd prefer that didn't happen on my watch. The concern in his voice sounded genuine, which made it more dangerous. Kira had learned to handle enemies easily enough. Potential allies were trickier, especially when she didn't know their actual agenda. I appreciate the warning, she said carefully, but I'm just here to train, learn, maybe make humanity look slightly less incompetent than everyone expects. That's the whole mission. Is it? Vexter studied her for a long moment. Fine. Keep your secrets. But understand this, Cadet Monroe. The Academy has survived 3,000 years by being very, very good at uncovering secrets. Whatever you're hiding, we will find it. Eventually. Better it comes from you than from a security investigation that leaves you in a detention cell. Noted, Kira said. Are we done here, Commander? I have combat simulation training in 20 minutes and I'd prefer not to be late. On day 2. Vexter made that sound again, half laugh, half cough. Dismissed. And Cadet, try not to break any records today. Some of the instructors are already filing complaints about the human showing up their best students. Kira left the room, walked calmly down the corridor until she was sure Vexter wasn't following, then allowed herself exactly 10 seconds of panic. They knew about the chip. Not what was on it maybe, but they knew it existed and that it mattered, which meant her timeline just accelerated dramatically. The combat simulation facility was located in the Academy's East Wing, a sprawling complex of training rooms, equipped with holographic projection systems and haptic feedback fields. Kira arrived to find 30 other cadets, already assembled, including Zara and several of the Corthians from yesterday's obstacle course. Instructor Thane, a battle-scarred Valorian with cybernetic enhancements, covering half his face, stood at the front of the room. Pair up human with non-human. Different species learn different techniques. Today we see who adapts fastest. Zara appeared at Kira's elbow before anyone else could claim her partners. Sure, Kira agreed, grateful for the familiar face, even if familiar was a strong word for someone she'd known less than a day. The simulation began simple. Basic hand-to-hand combat scenarios against holographic opponents programmed to match cadet skill levels. Kira moved through the first 3 levels easily, muscle memory from Earth. Training taking over. Block, counter, strike, disable. The movements were identical regardless of planet. Then level 4 activated and everything changed. The holographic opponent transformed into something that looked vaguely humanoid but moved in ways that violated physics as Kira understood them. Multiple joints bending in impossible direction, strikes coming from angles that shouldn't exist. Speed that made her reflexes look slow. Kira got hit hard. The haptic feedback translated the impact into stunning pain across her ribs. She stumbled back, barely dodged the follow-up strike, threw a counter punch that the thing twisted around like smoke. Adapt, Instructor Thane shouted. You're fighting like it's another human. It's not. Change your approach or fail. Kira circled, breathing hard, watching the opponent's movement patterns. There had to be a tell, some biological limitation, even holographic projections had to follow. Everything moved according to rules. You just had to figure out what they were. There, the thing's left side moved fractionally, slower than its right. Maybe half a second delay, barely noticeable, but present. Kira feinted right, then struck left. Her fist connected solidly. The holographic opponent staggered. She pressed the advantage, targeting that weak side, forcing it to compensate, creating openings where none had existed before. The opponent flickered and dissolved. Level 4 complete. Around her, other cadets were still struggling with level 2. Zara had made it to level 3, but was getting systematically dismantled by an opponent that apparently could phase through solid matter. Interesting, Instructor Thane approached Kira, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on her. You identified the weakness in 14 seconds. Our fastest cadets usually take 3 minutes minimum. Hell, everything has patterns, Kira said, still catching her breath. You just have to watch for them. And if there is no pattern, then you make one. Force your opponent to react, control the engagement, create the pattern yourself. Thane's scarred face split into something that might have been a smile. You've seen combat. Real combat. Not training scenarios. Not a question. Kira didn't answer, which was answer enough. The training continued for another 2 hours. By the end, Kira had advanced to level 7, matching the academy record. Zara made it to level 5, which apparently was impressive for a first attempt. The Corthians topped out at level 4, despite their physical advantages. Dismissed, Thane announced finally. Except you, Cadet Monroe, stay behind. The other cadets filed out, many glancing back at Kira with expressions ranging from respect to envy to something darker. Zara lingered near the door until Thane waved her away. When they were alone, the instructor approached Kira with deliberate slowness. Level 7 is Advanced Specialist. Territory. Soldiers with decades of experience, training against opponents most species have never encountered, yet you, a cadet, with supposedly basic Earth military background, match their performance. Explain. Good instincts, Kira offered. Try again. Kira weighed her options. Thane was military, not political. Career soldier who probably cared more about capability than council politics. Maybe, possibly, potentially an ally if handled correctly. Earth isn't as peaceful as the official reports suggest, she said carefully. We've had conflicts. Internal stuff mostly, but intense. Some of us got trained in ways that weren't exactly standard military doctrine. Black operations, Thane said, covert programs, the kind of training that doesn't appear in official records. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Thane turned away, began shutting down the simulation equipment. I've reviewed your file, Monroe. What little exists of it. Discharged for insubordination after a classified incident. No details about what you actually did. Just that it violated orders and achieved mission objectives anyway. That suggests either reckless stupidity or calculated risk-taking that your superiors couldn't officially acknowledge. Which do you think it was? I think you're here for a reason that has nothing to do with becoming a better soldier. Thane faced her again. I think someone sent you to the academy with a specific purpose, and I think that purpose is going to cause significant problems very soon. Am I wrong? Kira held his gaze. Lying to Thane would be pointless. The man had clearly seen too much to be fooled by standard deflection tactics. But telling the truth could blow the entire mission before it properly started. I'm here to learn, she said finally. What I do with that learning, well, that's up to me. Fair enough. Thane moved toward the exit, then paused. One more thing, tonight at midnight. Training Complex Delta, come alone to no one. If you're what I think you are, you'll understand why. He left before Kira could respond. The rest of the day passed in a blur of classes, training sessions, and carefully avoiding conversations that might become interrogations. By the time evening arrived, Kira was exhausted, paranoid, and increasingly certain that coming to the academy had been a spectacular mistake. She spent 2 hours in her room studying the data chip's contents for the 1000th time. Names, dates, locations. Evidence of council corruption that went back centuries, deals with hostile species, suppressed reports about unauthorized military actions, technology stolen and repurposed. All of it meticulously documented by someone who'd had access to the highest levels of galactic government. Someone who was now dead, killed in an accident that Kira's contacts insisted was anything but accidental. The chip had been smuggled to Earth through channels that didn't officially exist, delivered to human intelligence operatives who understood its implications immediately. And then, because humans were still outsiders in the galactic community, they'd needed someone to get it into the academy itself, into the heart of the institution that enforced council authority across known space. That someone had been Kira. Lucky her. At 11:30, she dressed in dark training gear and slipped out of her room. The academy grounds at night were beautiful in an eerie way, lit by bioluminescent pathways and the ambient glow from Cadro's Prime's 3 moons. Security patrols moved on predictable schedules that Kira had already memorized. Training Complex Delta was on the far edge of Academy grounds, near the atmospheric barrier that separated breathable air from the toxic environment beyond. Kira approached carefully, watching for ambushes, half expecting this to be a trap. Instructor Thane waited inside, along with 3 other figures. 2 Kira didn't recognize, the third was Zara. "What is this?" Kira demanded, hand dropping automatically to where her weapon would be if she'd been allowed to carry one. "Relax," Thane said. "We're not your enemies, at least not yet." Comforting. "Let me introduce you properly. This is Marcus Devane, former Earth Special Operations, now Academy Tactical Instructor. Dr. Prella Kix, Quellen Intelligence Analyst, and you already know Zara, who, like you, has reasons for being here that aren't entirely honest." Zara had the grace to look slightly guilty. "Surprise. I'm supposed to trust you now?" Kira asked, addressing the group generally. "No," Thane replied. "Trust is earned, but cooperation is necessary. We know about the data chip, Monroe. We know what's on it, or at least the general contents. And we know that you're planning to expose council corruption using Academy systems to broadcast the information across the entire galaxy." Kira's hand moved toward the concealed chip location automatically, then forced herself to stop. "How?" "Because we're part of the same network that sent you here," Marcus said. His accent was pure Earth, probably North American region. Different branch, same objective. The council has been operating above oversight for too long. Someone needs to expose what they've been doing. But sending one person, one chip, one desperate attempt, that was never going to work. "So what's your plan?" Kira asked, still not convinced but willing to listen. Dr. Kix spoke for the first time, her voice surprisingly deep for her delicate frame. "Coordination. Multiple simultaneous leaks from different sources. Physical evidence combined with digital documentation. Testimony from witnesses who can't all be silenced at once. Your chip is part of it, but only part. And if I say no, if I decide I don't want partners, then you try alone and probably fail." Thane said bluntly. "The council has sophisticated security protocols. One person attempting unauthorized data transmission will be caught, detained, and disappeared so quietly that no one will even remember you were here. But 6 people working together, using different access points, different timing, multiple redundancy systems. That might actually work." Kira studied each of them, looking for tells for deception, for anything that suggested this was elaborate counterintelligence designed to identify and neutralize threats. She found nothing but genuine determination mixed with fear. They were all risking everything for this, just like her. "Fine," she said finally. "I'm in. But if anyone betrays this operation, I will personally ensure they regret it." "Clear." "Crystal," Marcus grinned. "Welcome to the conspiracy, Monroe. Now let's talk about how we're going to burn down the most powerful government in galactic history." They spent the next 3 hours planning. Dr. Kix had access to restricted research databases. Marcus controlled several training facility networks. Thane had security clearances that opened doors throughout the academy. Zara possessed infiltration skills from her actual intelligence background, and Kira had the most damning evidence compiled in one place. Together, they might actually pull this off. The plan was elegant in its complexity. A synchronized data release timed for the Council's quarterly assembly, when every member species would have representatives present and unable to suppress the information before it spread. Multiple transmission points ensuring redundancy. Physical evidence distributed to independent media outlets. Backup systems in case primary channels got blocked. It would take weeks to coordinate properly. Weeks of pretending to be normal cadets while preparing to commit what the Council would definitely classify as treason. One more thing, Thane said as they prepared to leave. The warnings about Monroe, the whispers that she's the one they were warned about, those didn't come from intelligence assessments. Then where? Kira asked. Council prophecy archives. Apparently, some species have precognitive abilities. 3 different precogs from 3 different worlds all reported the same vision about 5 years ago. A human female entering the academy. Young, dangerous, carrying information that could shatter everything. They described her appearance perfectly, down to that scar above your left eyebrow. Kira touched the scar unconsciously. Souvenir from a training accident when she was 16. They've been waiting for you, Thane continued, watching for the human who matched the prophecy. And now you're here exactly as predicted, making everyone paranoid. Because they don't know what you're going to do, only that it will be catastrophic for the established order. Great, Kira muttered, no pressure. Actually, Zara said it's perfect. They're so focused on watching you, waiting for you to make the prophecy move, that they're not noticing the rest of us. You're the distraction whether you intended to be or not. She had a point. Kira had been treating the attention as a problem, but maybe it was actually an asset. Let them watch her, let them worry about what she might do. Meanwhile, the real work happened in the shadows around her. They split up, returning to their quarters separately, careful not to be seen together. Kira made it back to her room just before the final security sweep of the night. She stood at her window, watching Cadro's Prime's 3 moons track across the sky, and allowed herself a moment of doubt. This was insane. They were cadets and instructors, planning to expose corruption at the highest levels of galactic government. The odds of success were minimal. The consequences of failure were terminal. But doing nothing was worse. The evidence on that chip represented real crimes, real abuses of power. People had died keeping those secrets. Someone had to bring them to light, even if it destroyed the person doing it. Well, Monroe, she whispered to her reflection. Looks like you're the one they warned everyone about after all. Let's make it count. The following weeks blurred together in a pattern of training classes and secret midnight meetings. Kira pushed herself harder than ever, topping performance rankings across multiple disciplines. The more attention she drew as an exceptional cadet, the more her teammates could work unnoticed. Commander Vexator continued his subtle interrogations. Director Salvex watched her during assemblies. Other cadets either avoided her or tried to befriend her for mysterious reasons. Kira played the role perfectly, the talented but slightly arrogant human who thought she was better than everyone else. And all the while, the network assembled the pieces. Dr. Kix compiled corroborating evidence from research files. Marcus established secure transmission protocols. Thane identified key security vulnerabilities. Zara recruited 3 more cadets they vetted carefully. The conspiracy grew. Carefully, methodically, preparing for the moment when everything would change. That moment came exactly 42 days after Kira arrived at the academy. The Council Quarterly Assembly convened at noon Galactic Standard Time. Every species representative present, watching from their secure locations. Perfect target for maximum exposure. At noon and 30 seconds, 6 different data streams launched simultaneously from 6 different Academy systems. The encrypted files spread like wildfire across galactic networks. Too many sources to shut down quickly, designed to replicate and distribute faster than security protocols could respond. By noon and 2 minutes, half the galaxy had access to 3 centuries of council corruption. By noon and 5 minutes, every news outlet in known space was broadcasting emergency reports. By noon and 10 minutes, Kira Monroe stood in Director Salvex's office, surrounded by security personnel, facing consequences she'd always known were inevitable. You destroyed everything, Salvex said quietly. His voice held more sadness than anger. 3,000 years of carefully maintained peace shattered in moments. Peace built on lies isn't peace, Kira replied. It's just delayed conflict. Perhaps you're right and we were wrong. History will judge. Salvex studied her with eyes that seemed older than ancient. The Council is demanding your immediate arrest and trial. Several member species are calling for execution. You understand what you've done to yourself. I understand. I did what was necessary. Necessary. Salvex made a sound that might have been laughter. The prophecies were clear about you being dangerous. They failed to mention you'd also be absolutely certain you were right. Am I wrong? I don't know, Salvex admitted. Ask me in 10 years when we see whether the galaxy burns or rebuilds. Meanwhile, you're confined to Academy, holding until Council representatives arrive to collect you. I'm sorry, Cadet Monroe, I actually hoped you'd prove the prophecies wrong. Security escorted her to a detention cell that was more comfortable than her original quarters, but significantly less escapable. Kira sat on the provided bench and waited, expecting fear or regret, feeling mostly tired and oddly satisfied. 3 hours later, Commander Vexator appeared at her cell barrier. You have visitors, he said. Official council representatives here to discuss your fate. This should be interesting. He led her to a conference room where 5 beings waited, representing the Council's Enforcement Division. Kira recognized none of them, which was probably intentional. Cadet Kira Monroe, the lead representative, began. You stand accused of espionage, data theft, and conspiracy to undermine galactic governance. How do you plead? Guilty on all counts, Kira said calmly. And I'd do it again. Noted. The representative's expression remained neutral. Before we proceed to sentencing, the council has questions. First, who helped you? We know you didn't act alone. I acted alone, Kira lied smoothly. Humans are pretty good at solo operations. The technical sophistication of your data release required access you didn't possess. Name your accomplices. There were none. The interrogation continued for 2 hours. Kira stuck to her story, taking sole responsibility, refusing to implicate anyone else. Thane, Marcus, Zara, and the others had planned for this. Kira was the prophecy. The expected threat, she'd be the fall person while they remained free to continue the work. Finally, the representatives conferred quietly, then turned back to face her. The council has decided, the lead representative announced. Normally, crimes of this magnitude would warrant severe punishment, execution, or permanent exile. However, circumstances have become complicated. The information you released has triggered widespread protests across multiple systems. Millions of beings demanding reforms. Several member species threatening to withdraw from council authority unless corruption is addressed properly. Punishing you harshly might make you a martyr and escalate tensions. Kira waited, sensing a trap. Therefore, you will be expelled from the academy immediately. You will be returned to Earth and prohibited from leaving human territory indefinitely. Your actions have been classified as unauthorized but not officially criminal, a technicality that allows us to avoid trial proceedings. Consider yourself fortunate. That's it. Kira couldn't hide her surprise. You're just sending me home. Don't misunderstand. Your life as you knew it is over. You'll be monitored constantly. Any attempt to leave Earth will result in immediate detention. You've burned every bridge that existed between you and the galaxy. Yes, Cadet Monroe, that's it. They escorted her back to her quarters to collect her belongings. 45 minutes later, she stood on the same landing platform where she'd arrived, watching the transport shuttle that would carry her back to Earth. Monroe. Zara appeared from somewhere moving. Vast. I had to see you before you left. You shouldn't be here. Association with me could compromise you. Let them compromise me. You did it. The information is spreading faster than they can contain. People are demanding answers. The council can't ignore this. You actually changed something. We changed something, Kira corrected. Your part isn't done. Keep pushing, keep exposing. Don't let them bury this once I'm gone. We won't. Zara pulled something from her pocket. Take this. Communication device, heavily encrypted. We'll stay in contact. You might be stuck on Earth, but you're still part of this fight. Kira took the device, tucked it carefully into her jacket. Thank you for everything. Thank you for being exactly what they warned us about. Zara smiled. The galaxy needed someone willing to burn it down to save it. Turns out that someone was a stubborn human with questionable decision-making skills. Hey, my decision-making is excellent. You literally destroyed your entire career to expose government corruption. That's objectively terrible. Decision-making. Fair point. They hugged briefly. Awkwardly. The way soldiers do when they know it might be the last time. Then Zara disappeared back into the academy while Kira boarded the shuttle. as Cadro's prime fell away beneath her. Kira pulled out the data chip now. Empty, its purpose fulfilled. She'd carried it across the galaxy. Risked everything, succeeded in ways that surprised even her. The prophecy said she'd be the one they warned about. The dangerous human who would shatter the established order. For once, prophecy got it right. But they missed the important part. She wasn't the end of something. She was the beginning. The first crack in a corrupt foundation that others would continue to widen. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly the point. Kira leaned back in her seat, closed her eyes and smiled. Mission accomplished. Now came the harder part, living with the consequences. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today she'd allow herself this moment of victory. The stubborn human who changed everything. The cadet who became a catalyst. The one they warned about who proved warnings weren't always enough. Kira Monroe, heading home knowing she'd never truly left the fight behind. The story was complete. The legend was just beginning.